What's up everybody, Super Dorks fan here for another car review. This is of course the 2016 Infiniti Q50 Red Sport 400. Huge thanks to Infiniti for providing me with this very nice Q50 to review for you guys today. So about the Q50 Red Sport 400, I first off love this blue color. It's really nice here in the sun with the way it's got the metallic flake in it. Looks really sweet. I actually always loved the way the Q50s looked. I really enjoyed the one that I reviewed a couple of years ago, back whenever it had the 3.7 liter V6, and I'm very excited to try out here this 400 horsepower twin turbo V6 version. But as far as the looks go though, I still really love the way it looks, even though they haven't really changed the looks in the past few years here. It still looks very good. It's very mean yet elegant at the same time. That front end is just really looks great. I really love the way it looks. In the back there you do have some nice taillights as well, but I think the front is definitely the best part of this car. It just looks really great, but it does look great from all angles though. I think it's a really well styled car and looks very nice. I do wish though that for this being the top of the line high performance model that it looked a little bit more aggressive to set it apart from the normal ordinary Q50s, and unfortunately it doesn't, aside from these nice wheels that you have here, and of course the badges on the side. But aside from that, you know, it's missing a little bit more pizzazz, I think, for a high performance model, but still looks good nonetheless. As for the interior of the Q50 RS 400, well, it's a pretty nice place. I gotta say, I first just noticed all the nice soft touch stuff everywhere. Like usually around the transmission tunnel here, it's usually harder plastic in most cars, and here they still took the time to put some nicely padded leather here that feels really nice, and on the doors it's all very nice, and so overall it has a very high quality feel overall. But anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, they are very comfortable seats, very soft, nice leather. The only thing though about these seats, again, this is the performance model, and although it does have adjustable bolsters, which is a nice feature, the bolstering, even in their tightest position, is still a little wider and more relaxed than I would like. You know, I mean, they're not bad seats for a luxury car, but again, if this is going to be the performance one, I wish they were a little more aggressive here. But overall, they're still nice, comfortable seats. Next to the steering wheel here in the Q50, which is very nicely leather wrapped, has a perfect 9-3 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches, and just a nice thick, you know, wheel. It's not overly thick though. It's just got it's a really happy medium. And I also still love they're using the same paddle shifters here that have been in the GTRs, that are actual, I think, magnesium, and have the nice little bit of leather on them as well. And they're mounted to the steering column, which I actually prefer versus all these ones that are on the steering wheels themselves, because this way, you know, you always know where your paddle's at, regardless of, you know, if you're turning the wheel or whatever. And so I like having them there, and they just feel really great. As far as the gauges in the Q50, very nice gauges. You know, I wish they were maybe a little bit more aggressive, but they do look good nonetheless. I like the colors, and you know, you have a nice center color display there as well, that gives you some basic information, shows you your drive mode and things like that. Not a ton of information, but you know, all the basics that you're used to in cars with these center screens these days. And so overall, a pretty decent set of gauges. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, I really love this dual screen layout here. I think it works really well, and I really like just how everything's designed here. But anyway, up top here you have your first screen, which is solely for navigation, and I really love though, in addition to doing split screen kind of stuff and everything with the maps, you can also have it so it lists out, you know, the different intersections you're going to be going through whenever it's directing you, and also actual steps along with the map. So I really like that they kind of have some adjustability there, and that screen is also a matte finish, so that's nice, so it doesn't glare too much. This bottom screen though is glossy, and this controls all your other things, and I really love, I mean, the graphics and everything are so high resolution. It's a very responsive touchscreen as well. It works without a hitch every single time, and you know, just a few basic menus here for your audio, for your climate, and also a few other little menus there you can dive into. And I really enjoy the way that screen works, and I love the graphics for the, you know, radio layout and stuff. Thankfully you do have a volume knob. You do not have a tune knob, but it's still still scrolls through the channels and stuff pretty quickly, so not a big deal there. And it is nice to have a little volume knob here still. And yeah, but otherwise, I really love the piano black finish here, and it really helps to make this feel pretty classy. You also have a little controller here, which will control things for the map in particular, and it has a very nice knurled metal aluminum finish, and just feels awesome. Very similar to all the stuff you get in Audis with their knobs and things like that. And so really great to have that there. And you also have a little drive mode selector here in the back, which also feels nice. As far as storage space in the Q50, it's pretty good. So anyway, first thing in the door here, you have a nice little map pocket with a good sized bottle holder, which is always good to see. Coming over to the center here, you have a tiny little ashtray size cubby and also a power outlet there. Coming to the back, you have 2 cup holders that are a decent size, not super big, but good enough to get the job done. And then you have this center armrest, which I think is the softest center armrest I've seen since the Rolls Royce that I reviewed. A very nice armrest there, and so very well done job there. But anyway, you open that up, and then you have a pretty nice size cubby here where you can fit a good amount of things. A cell phone and stuff does usually fit in there, as long as they're not enormous. You do have 2 USB jacks in there, as well as an SD card slot for your map. You also have an auxiliary jack, a strange yellow jack for whatever reason there for your video, and then you also do have a power outlet as well in there. Backseat space in the Q50 is pretty good. So I'm 5'9", me sitting behind myself. I still have several inches of legroom there to spare. Headroom is a little bit tighter than some other sedans in this segment, but I still do have a couple inches of headroom there to spare. And I gotta say, that back seat is super soft and comfortable as well, and just feels really great to sit in, honestly. And so very comfortable, but I think you do sit up a little bit higher in it than you do in some other back seats, which I think is why the headroom isn't quite as large as it is in other vehicles. But overall, still a really nice back seat. You have a fold down armrest there, which has 2 cup holders in it as well, and just really well done. Trunk space in the Q50 is pretty good as well. I mean, definitely not best in the class, but about average for what you see in cars of this size and this segment. So I mean, you could easily fit 2 full-size suitcases. I think you could probably fit 4 smaller ones in there, and overall, good amount of space. But of course, if you want a ton of cargo space, you're better off with getting one of the crossovers that Infiniti has instead. All right, so let's start over and go for a drive. The Infinitis here have a slightly smaller key fob. It feels really nice though still, and I really like it, actually, that it's a smaller size. Of course, it's keyless entry and push button start, so you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button, and it starts right up. Alright, so setting off in the 2016 Infiniti Q50 RS400. So, first thing you notice in this is that it's, a fairly normal feeling driving position and things like that. You have a very good view forward here as far as visibility goes. Hood drops down pretty nicely so you barely see it. A view out of the sides is very good as well with, a B-pillar there that's not too bad, and so view out of the back is great as well. And otherwise though, it's fairly smooth ride here in the comfort mode. It's just a standard luxury car in the way that it feels. One thing that does jump out at you is this has that direct adaptive steering control system, and so what that basically means is that there's force feedback going through the steering wheel, and although there is still a physical connection between the wheels and the steering wheel, just because that's what the Department of Transportation mandates, it's not like you're not actually using that unless the system fails. And so it's a $1,000 option, and so basically what it means is the steering wheel doesn't move the wheels. So what happens is the steering wheel detects my inputs from steering, and then there's little electric motors that turn the wheels. And so it actually is pretty flawless. When you first start driving one of these, you may feel a difference, and it might feel a little bit odd, but I've been driving this car for about 50 miles already, just leisurely cruising around, and after a while you do get used to it, and it feels pretty normal. Alright, so we're going to put the drive mode into Sport Plus. We're going to put the shifter into manual here, and let's turn down onto this back road here and see how it does. And here we go. Ooh, okay. Oh, alright, it's got some get up and go. So yes, this 3-liter twin-turbo turbocharged V6 does 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. And so 0 to 60 time for these is 4.5 seconds. And I believe that for sure, especially if I wasn't doing the manual shifting on my own here. Because I think this, again, this is a 7-speed automatic, but it's not the quickest. You know, it's still a good old torque converter automatic and not one of the sharper ones, you know, from ZF or someone like that. So because of that, you know, that slows it down a little bit if you do the manual. But I think if you leave it in the automatic mode and just have it bang off the shifts on its own, then you're much better off. But I mean, it's not bad though here. I mean, doing the manual shifting, you know, it's still, I'd say downshifts are actually quicker than I was expecting. It's just the upshifts that are slow to me, but downshifts aren't bad. It's just these upshifts, that's how long it took for it to upshift. Paddle, there's the shift. Like way too slow. So I mean, you know, if you really want to drive sportingly, unfortunately these paddles don't really help out too much, just because the transmission can't keep up. Road noise is pretty subdued in these as well. They're, you know, pretty nice and quiet, and just a really nice thing to cruise around in. All right, so coming up to some tight corners here. Let's see how the Infiniti handles it. All right, so it's pretty good. The steering actually feels better here in the Sport Plus mode. In normal mode, the steering weight's a little too light for my taste, but it actually feels fairly buttoned down. It does feel heavy, I do have to say though. 3,800 odd pounds for these, which, you know, makes it around the same weight as like an ATSV or something like that, but those have a lot more tire and trick suspension setup to make it feel lighter than it actually is. This feels every bit of 3,800 pounds, I'd say, but it does have, you know, the tires aren't the widest. We're dealing with 245 wide tires in the front and 265 in the back. This is running the Potenza REO5As, I believe, and so they're summer tires still. It's a nice warm day, so we do have a good amount of grip here, and it does, once you pitch it into a corner, it does hunker down and hang on, but it just certainly feels heavy, and there's no way of escaping that weight. It's just really, every time you're pushing into a corner, you can really feel that weight pushing through the corner with you. Another acceleration. Yeah, definitely best us to leave it in full automatic and let it do its own thing for sure. But it does feel fun around corners. I don't want to diminish that just because, you know, it has a heavy feeling to it. It still is very fun to throw around corners, and it does feel pretty sharp, you know. I mean, there isn't really any body roll or lean to speak of, which is really nice. So it gives you a competent feeling. You just have to be mindful of the weight. And like I said, you know, the fact that these tires aren't super wide, so you can only lean on it so much before it starts to let you down a little bit. Another little go. All right, that time I tried powering it out of the corner there, and it just stayed buttoned down. So you do have tons and tons of grip as far as, you know, traction goes when you're putting the power to the ground. So that's nice to have. Other things to note here, like I said, steering weight is actually pretty nice here in Sport Plus mode, but too light in the normal mode, I think, for sporty driving. Yeah, it's doing a good job here though. I'm having fun. I am still having fun. This is still very much a performance car for sure. Even in Sport Plus mode though, this transmission isn't right there with me, unfortunately. It's kind of still trying to figure out what I'm doing, and some of the better transmissions in this segment are right there with you and can predict what you want to do a whole lot better. Other things though, throttle response is pretty good and actually feels nice and analog. Brake travel has a good amount of travel to it, unfortunately. These are some beefier brakes here you get with the Red Sport 400, and it does slow you down very nicely. It just would be nice to have a little bit of a firmer brake pedal, I think, and you know, so that's another small little critique. But otherwise though, I mean, this thing is still really great fun. But yeah, certainly understeery at the limit, which is a marked difference from a lot of the other competitors out there, you know, like the 3 Series and A4s and C-Classes and things like that, and even the ATS. But yeah, it's a pretty fun little thing so far. But anyway, I'm going to drive this around all week here because thanks to Infiniti, they lent me one for a week. So I'm going to drive around. I'll come back and give you guys all my, you know, updated fuel economy and my final thoughts. All right, so I've been driving the 2016 Infiniti Q50 Red Sport Sport 400 here for about a week now, and unfortunately it got below freezing temperatures here in the week that I had it. For much of the week we even had snow during the weekend, and this car was on summer tires, which meant I wasn't able to drive it for much of the week, unfortunately. But the driving that I did do, I still did enjoy it. I didn't get too many more chances to push it here, and even today it's pretty cold, so I can't even really push it while I'm doing this little driving portion. So my thoughts here, well, first off, I've put about 100 miles on the car, in the time that I did drive it here, and my fuel economy, it was kind of strange. The way that this reads your fuel economy, it only updates it every so often, and so it's currently telling me that I'm getting 14.1 miles per gallon over the duration, but before I reset it and it was dropped off to me, it was doing 22.8, so I don't know if that's with their driving on the highway or what, but the fuel economy still seems lower than what I was expecting, because I think this car is rated at 18 in the city, 26 on the highway for a combined average of 22, and this is nowhere near 18 in the city. And this is, even if my driving is basically all city driving, but it's still 4 mpg lower than what it should be for city driving. So that's one little disappointment, is definitely the fuel economy. Another slight disappointment that I had here was the buttons here to control the infotainment and everything are pretty good. It's not the best, but I actually really like that it's touchscreen and stuff. It works well. The only problem though is there's a few things that are hidden that I wish weren't hidden. For example, most cars that have heated steering wheels, there's a button on the steering wheel or close to it to just simply turn it on. Whereas in this, you have to hit the small little climate button and then hit the heated steering wheel button. It's just an extra step, and minor little things like that aren't the end of the world, but can be annoying over time. And also these 3 buttons down here for audio, menu, and climate are also pretty small and hard to find whenever you're trying to look down at the road, and you don't want to be looking over here at these little buttons and trying to hunt around for them, and so I wish those were a little more larger. There are a decent mix of buttons all over this, and especially with the touchscreen and stuff, I do find myself having to look down at this more than I would in the average car that has more typical button layouts, I guess, and things like that. So that's just another observation. One thing that's a positive though that I really did enjoy is how this car actually kind of feels small, and the more that I drive it throughout the week here, it started to really it seems more manageable than a lot of the other competitors. They just seem a little bit bigger. I kind of like the seating position in this a little better than some of the other competition. I do also enjoy the plentiful power that this car has, but the thing that still holds this car up is this automatic transmission. This 7-speed automatic, it's just no fun with the paddles because the paddles are too slow to react, because the transmission is just dated at this point, and it's very slow with the manual shifting. So just leaving it in automatic's fine, but if they put maybe the manual transmission from the Nissan 370Z in here, the old Infiniti G37s, that would be awesome to have an actual manual, and then you don't have to worry about the automatic, or just upgrade to a newer automatic. Put the ZF8 speed that a lot of the other manufacturers use, or you can even go for, I know it's a little bit rougher, but the GTR's transmission. And that kind of brings me to my next point here, is the way to make the Q50 better, because this is still kind of more like a BMW 340 competitor than it is an M3 competitor. And so I'm still wishing there was a harder edge version, because this looks like every other Q50 for the most part, and the suspension and stuff is still a little softer than I would like out of a $60,000 sports sedan. It still is just a little too soft. And so I know that they dabbled with the Q50 Rouge concept, which was the GTR powered concept that was pretty awesome and had the aggressive looks to go along with the awesome performance. And I know that especially with how GTR prices are ballooning, that might not make sense financially to do some kind of setup like that, which is a shame though, because I think that would be the perfect way to really give the Q50 a huge head and shoulders advantage over the competition. If you gave it nearly 600 horsepower from the GTR engine, and you were able to give it that quick shifting transmission as well, I think that would really help the performance, because this transmission does slow this car down, because even though this has 400 horsepower, it actually is slower 0 to 60 than a comparable BMW 340 with the ZF8 speed automatic that those have. So the horsepower doesn't really do you a whole lot of favors in this. Yes, it might have more horsepower than the competition,
but it's not actually in reality faster than the competition, which is a shame because I like that it has, you know, the higher horsepower numbers. It's just unfortunately just underutilizes that engine. One last thing I do want to mention here about the Q50 is the price of it. The Red Sport 400 is not cheap, and so that's one of the other holdups I have with it is, you know, if this were priced out, you know, well below some of the competition, then I could accept, okay, well, it might not have as fast of an automatic, and it, you know, might not be as sharp as I would like, but it's cheaper, so it's okay. But the reality is it's not really any cheaper. This one, as tested, is $60,585. So 60,000 bucks, even with the expensive Germans, gets you pretty far. You can get basically a fully loaded BMW 340i with the X-Drive and all the M Sport packages for basically the same money. Another car you can get for the same money is the Jaguar XE R Sport, which is actually my new favorite in this segment here, and you know, same price, you know, basically all the options, 60,000 bucks. And you know, that actually handled a little more excitingly in the quick drive I did in that, and you know, so that's another one that it's just, there's so much good competition. In the luxury sports sedan segment, you have to be at the top of your game to set yourself apart, or, you know, do something really unique and outstanding. And this just doesn't have that pizzazz to it. There isn't anything that makes me want this over the very impressive competition. But I'm very glad the Q50 Red Sport 400 exists, because it's always good to have more options, and it's really great to have an option here, you know, from Infiniti, because I do love, you know, the looks of this car. I've always liked the Q50. I enjoy the, you know, naturally aspirated V6 version that I reviewed a couple of years ago. They are, you know, really cool cars. You know, just like I said, tough price point, very tough competition. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on the Q50 Red Sport 400 here, and huge thanks to Infiniti once again for providing me with one here to review for you guys. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.